Lovely.
All right. Well, let's open this up. So welcome to the September 14th Telecom Advisory Committee meeting. We have opening text here. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the opening meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Easthampton Telecom Advisory Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress may do so by accessing the Zoom link embedded in the agenda. We will post a record of this meeting on the Easthampton Media website as soon as we are able. City of Easthampton would like to remind everyone to continue wearing their masks and practicing safe social distancing. All right. So this is a little funky on the phone. Okay, now I can see more of you. Hold on, give me a second to kind of figure out how to do that. Okay. Something. So this is going to be a little awkward. Did everybody have a chance to, well, first we have public speak, but there's no one here from the public to speak. Did everybody have a chance to review Kevin's meeting minutes?
I did.
All right. Okay. So is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you, Tom. Any one second this motion?
Dan.
I will second that.
Thank you, Tom M. So moved. Okay, so we're gonna do a roll call vote. I'm gonna go through you guys one at a time. Tom Peak, do you approve this motion?
Aye.
Aye. Tom Ellsbury?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Stan? We may have lost Stan.
Yeah, it looks like his screen froze.
And Dan Gilbert, are you here?
Yes.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Are you
How do you-
seeing me?
No.
We're not
Oh, there
seeing
you-
your video.
Hello?
Stan, is that you?
I'm seeing myself on the screen.
We can hear you at least.
Yes.
but
I'm seeing
Yeah.
myself on the screen.
Okay. It looks like your screen is frozen, but we can hear you.
Stan, do you support the motion to approve Kevin's minutes?
I do.
Excellent. And Dan,
Did
Yeah.
you hear me?
you do?
Yep.
Dan?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Dan, we can hear you. Just cannot see you. Okay.
How about now?
Yep.
So we've made a good amount of progress on this report. I'm hoping you guys had a chance to read the sections that were sent out.
Yeah,
earlier.
I just looked through them again tonight. I've read a couple of them beforehand. The sections that I originally wrote, the changes you made, they're good. I like the changes you made. The last one that I did, I would point out that the indexing numbers got mixed up in it. If you look at it, it has two section 1s, and then section 3 is labeled as section 2. It's kind of minor stuff, so.
Which one is this? Is this user profile?
This was the one on user profiles, yeah, that I threw together from Jason's data. So that needs to be reformatted, so. But any general comments about them, I'll wait until we go through each section if we're gonna do that. Other people?
Okay. Well, let's talk about section 2. We'll start there because we have an update to that section. Do you guys have I'm hoping everybody read through the edits to that section. Do you guys want to read through the whole thing, or do we want to? I can't bring it up on the screen, of course. Or do we want to? Did you guys, anybody take notes, or is there any feedback?
Yeah, let me just quickly read section 2. My only comment, I think, was in section 2.3 on how the MLP vote went. I think we should have some dates as to when City Council voted on it. And I think, didn't they have to vote on it twice in 2 fiscal years?
Tom?
Yes.
Yeah, that is how it went down.
I don't think,
Yeah, I can get those dates.
yeah, I think it
Okay.
just says they voted on it once, but I think, they voted on it in 2 different fiscal years to meet the requirement. So we should make sure that we indicate every box was checked on how the MLP was granted.
Yep. Great. I can make those changes, or Paul can make the changes. He has the master document now.
Anyway.
Before we send this out, we probably should cut, as funny as it is, the part about 8 additional and remarkably handsome city representatives.
Wait a minute, what? Who put that in?
I don't know. It's in the
Oh,
first.
I don't know who made that, because that wasn't in my original one.
I'm guessing that was Jason.
Ah.
No, that one was.
Are you sure Kelsey didn't get a copy of this when you weren't?
Yeah, I don't think that was Kelsey.
I completely missed that one. That's funny.
I thought it'd be a good chuckle there. All right. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with section 2 overall. That's a good
Yep.
suggestion, Tom Melsbury.
Agreed. Yep.
All right. So on section 3, I had edited some text. I sent it over to Dan, but Dan, I never heard back from you. Did you have a chance to look it over, or did you make any changes on your end?
Sorry for not being responsive to that. I also just want to add that my internet is really bad right now. I've dropped out twice in the last 5 minutes, so I might disappear at any moment. I did read yours, and I didn't see anything noteworthy that was an issue. I'm still getting through the charter contract, so I don't have an update on that.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I kind of had a question for everybody about this section. We have here in section 3.5, this is under background information, a part on municipal light plant, and it's a little bit redundant in a way, because in history and mission we talk about how the MLP vote happened, and then we talk about that again at the end here, municipal light plant. But I was wondering if we should maybe expand what we're talking about with municipal light plant to, I don't know if it needs to be its own section or if it's just part of this section where we kind of explain more about like how like a board would function and how it could be appointed by a senior executive, such as a mayor, or it could be independently elected, and how there's different options for that. What do you guys think?
I mean, I kind of my same line. I think some of that's beyond the scope of this. I think we say that somewhere, I don't recall, I think we say that, board members could either be appointed or elected. As to what the structure would be, I think that would be in a more in-depth, once the city had a business plan and a model to follow. I think we just need to present the options. I don't know if there's any benefit in expanding it too much in this.
The only reason I say this is because I remember during the presentation a year ago that was Peg Conniff's question was about
Okay.
that.
Specifically.
And yes. And so I was wondering if we should make a point to include some more clarity on that in the report itself, seeing as she's the city council president.
With that reminder, yes, I would say, because in one of the sections you gave us to review, we did say that the point of the public hearing was to incorporate questions asked there in more detail. So if that was specifically asked, then I agree with your thought process then.
The only thing that I sort of wonder about here is, like, beyond saying that this is it would be overseen by a board, and that board could be either appointed or elected. Like, what else is there to say?
Well, the only other things I would think of, and I thought
I
about it a
would
little
think
bit.
there's a lot to,
It could also be said that, like, what other areas that municipal light plants commonly offer service, or where it could be, like, it could be said, and I'm not saying we should say these things, but it could be said that, you know, potential services which municipal light plants, you know, have offered or can offer would be like electricity or natural gas, or, you know, or include broadband internet. And it may be a way for the city to, in the future, explore different types of services it could offer residents.
Right. I guess
but
there's a
you-
point that you could just say, here's some other types of utilities that municipal light plants offer, and while we're not obligated to do any of those things, there are the options that the city might someday choose to explore.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think about, like, maybe 20 or 30 years from now, some technology comes out that would be really good fit for us to generate power here in Easthampton. And because we made the groundwork or formed an MLP, that gives, you know, future Easthampton the freedom to do that, if it makes sense.
Right.
but the MLP is a state law, correct?
Yes.
So all we need to do is put in one line that says, if you need more information about an MLP and what it is, go here.
Well, sort of. I mean, yeah, we could get away with that, but it's also worth mentioning that, like, mass general laws are all horribly written, and
Okay.
yeah, confusing.
I mean, I've looked through it. It's like 63 subsections of, you know, archaic.
You know, the way it's structured now. Yeah, the way it's structured now might make sense, because we speak of the MLP and the history and mission of the committee in more of a historical general sense. And here in the background information, right before that, we talk about infrastructure preparation. And in a sense, I think the MLP is kind of that. But I don't think we want to get real complicated. Anybody who wants to know about that can certainly find more information about it on their own.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to saying something along the lines of, historically in Massachusetts, municipal light plants have offered, you know, their communities power, water.
That could be something to add to section 2.
You know, and in recent time, they've expanded to include municipal broadband. In the future, it could also potentially service other technologies that would be benefit to the community, or something along that line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recommended that it's a broad tool that's been used in the past and is evolving.
That sounds good.
Okay, good. I'm glad we covered that. So I don't have an update for market landscape, but we did have an update to field visits. Hoping you guys got a chance to read through that too. I don't know if you want to read that whole thing.
I read through that again, Paul, too, having originally written it, and I really like your updates. You captured a lot of data that I didn't capture on those visits with Westfield and South Hadley and Holyoke, for that matter. So I like the way it's a little longer now, but I think that information is very germane to what the city is trying to figure out right now.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah.
I
I tried to include everything that I could think that a person who didn't know anything about this stuff might want to know.
I think I really like it, and I think it's great. The only thing I would change is just stylistic, is when we're talking about the members of the other, like, MLPs, I would just use last names.
You would like to use last names?
Yeah, like versus saying like Sean or Lee, like Mr. Fitzgerald. Like,
Yeah.
just,
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only comment is on a similar vein. It just caught my ear a couple times reading it. A lot of times it says us and we, and I think that should be, you know, the committee or members of the committee. You know, us and we is a little informal and vague to me reading it. You know, where it sounds more conversational.
Yeah, and there are places where we use like the committee, and so
Yeah.
it's not really consistent, I suppose, if we're going back and forth like that either way.
I mean, it's a group written document, so I just think we need to have a, you know, final read through where we, you know,
Yep.
pick a consistent term or group of terms and document it through.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have all the sections and then we can decide what recommendations we make,
Yep.
and
Yeah,
then we can do the grammar check.
Did I get my internet back? Oh, my internet's back. Well, I'm not going to switch from this, though. That would be too complicated. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, though, us and we. Was there any other feedback anybody had for here for section 5?
I think from the rest of that, it seemed, I guess my only other comment was, you know, how one section we say that they were proposing that, you know, if Easthampton joined, they would have this ring technology. I mean, that already exists. It already runs through Easthampton. You know, they already have that.
Laid all that cable?
Yeah, they already,
Okay.
the ring exists. We would just be joining it.
Well, that makes it
Oh,
even
I
better
see.
to me, but that's a good point to make, so
Like
we can
that
update
fiber
those
already runs
sections.
right in front of my house along 141. I would like to tap into it at some point. I can see it, but I can't touch it.
We'll get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, but that sort of, that ring already exists and is that's how they have their redundancy, and we could easily join that ring. You know.
Gotcha. So instead of saying like wood form, be like, let's just
Yeah.
rephrase that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But that core infrastructure is already running down 141 and 10. You know, and they have offered us the potential to join it.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of
Perfect.
having to build a parallel system on the same poles.
Yep, no kidding. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll save that for recommendation section, but
Yep.
it's impressive what they've done.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments here on section 5?
Everything else seemed, I mean, for the ones I was here for and all the past videos I watched, it seems consistent with what I remember. So.
Great. Okay. So I didn't get an update for section 6 or 7, but I did send out an update to section 8. Not a lot was changed here. I did change some language things just for like grammar and clarity and such, but residential betterment districts was totally rewritten because I didn't actually write about residential betterment districts at the time, and actually we called them something else, like improvement districts or something, but I found out that the actual term in Massachusetts is betterment districts. You guys check out section 8?
Yeah, I read this tonight too. I thought this covered our options a little better than the original document I remembered reading about. So this, you know, bonding being the obvious one, but I don't think we emphasize revenue generation, you know, enough, and I like the way it's been written up here. So. The
I
citywide
did.
tax increase, nobody's gonna like that, so, but yeah, I like what I read here. This is pretty good.
Yeah, I did put in there also in citywide tax increase, and it wasn't there before, about the example of Charlemont, Mass, and the story how they rejected an offer of service from Comcast and instead supported a property tax increase to build a municipal broadband network. I didn't write in there, but the true story is that it actually cost them like $1 million to do that, and they like over what Comcast would have charged them. So this very, very, very small town that I've never even heard of, like
Yeah.
voluntarily paid like over $1 million among their residents, which it came out to like over $1,000 a person to reject Comcast and build their own fiber optic internet to partner with Westfield, Whip City.
That's why numbers, are so important about this, Like I said, if you don't have the density, which Easthampton fortunately has, it's hard to do these things and make them work.
Yeah, I think my only, in section 8.3, the second paragraph, about a third of the way down, there's a sentence that starts, for example, a city might use bond. I feel like it should be a bond or a revenue bond.
Oh, yeah, might use a bond. Might use a revenue bond.
Yep. It seems like a word got lost in your editing.
It certainly did. Thank you. Man. All right, and I wasn't sure if I should include, so I've collected a bit of information about like a lot of these other cities around us and what it actually cost them, or what they actually bonded out for, and how many houses they were able to cover with those initial bonds. Like for instance, in Westfield, I found that their first small bond was $1.5 million, and I'm going from memory. I have it written down somewhere, but it allowed them to connect their first like 2,000 homes. That was their, like, not their very first initial fiberhood test, which was all funded in-house, but like their first little expansion. And similarly, like in Greenfield, they did a $5 million bond and were able to cover like 80% of their homes.
I feel like we really don't want to put any hard numbers in here because every situation's different and people will latch on to a specific number. And if it costs us $6 million to do the first fiberhood, or if it could be considerably less because technology is cheaper now and expertise, I mean, maybe as an appendix, but I don't think we should tout it that, we could do the first 2,000 homes for 1.5 million sets a benchmark.
At the minimum, if we're going to discuss those things, we need to caveat that with saying
in 2016
technology
did
changes.
this.
Right.
Yeah.
Purely informational purposes, this is what other cities
I
saw
think
for
that's
cost.
good information to have for further discussions, and to be made available to city council and whoever else gets involved.
Like I said, if we want to compile that into an appendix, but
Yeah.
to weave it into the narrative, I don't know if it's beneficial. I mean, it
Agreed.
can be. I'm open to that. It just, somebody might skim and see a number and lock onto it.
I could see that as an appendix, like just a section of what we've seen for costs for other communities as a purely informational.
Yep.
tool.
Yeah. Just with a year it happened, houses,
Yeah.
residences, included, and the cost.
I would like to look at it, and I'm sure there's other, numbers wonks out there. So it wouldn't appeal to everybody, but some people I think would like to read that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives everybody an order of magnitude to sort of understand the scope of it, and I think that is beneficial. But
yeah,
What do you think, Tom Peake?
I mean, I think that it's definitely it's something that I totally understand Tom's concern. I think that, like, I think that it makes sense to some extent to have that information somewhere in the report, because
It's going to be asked.
right. It's going to be asked. We know it. We've discussed it. If it's not there, people are going to take the wrong thing away from that. But I do think that when we discuss this, I don't mind the idea of an appendix. I don't mind the idea of putting it in there, but just, you know, and of course, like, even with an appendix, you know, people are free to misinterpret or whatever. But like, I do think it's just really important that we make it clear that we are by no means saying that this is what it's going to cost Easthampton, that the market for these things is changing and that we're a different community than Greenfield or South Hadley or Westfield. But I do think it's worth, you know, like, I mean, this comes up a lot where people say, well, what do these things cost? And it's worth saying, like, well, here's what it costs South Hadley. They have about as many people as us. It's not going to be the same, but it's probably not going to be 10 times more.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that feedback.
Like, this is an informational committee, so that is information that's been gathered by this committee in its due diligence, then it should be documented. But like I said, I don't know if it belongs in the narrative.
I feel like if we're going to say we can't provide any estimate as to what it will cost here that has any like solid base, because you know we need a full survey and we may have different features to our community, at least having that gives people like an idea of what similar communities have seen for expenses, and so they just kind of know kind of the ballpark, as long as we're very clear that this is not, you know, this is not a real cost estimate of Easthampton, but this is what we've seen in the market.
Yeah, and I think that can be in our executive summary, you know, a ballpark number, and then say, you know, as seen in similar communities in appendix, whatever, you know, and consultation with the other, you know, entities we visited with. You know, that's not a fabricated number. It's this committee's best ballpark, but conditions, you know, warranted, you know, we're recommending a much more detailed analysis be done.
Okay.
Caveat.
Yeah, plenty of those. Yeah, we can write it very politically. We won't commit to anything. Is there any other?
I think you're right. Anybody's going to say what's the bottom line, and we should be able to, with a straight face, say, you know, within these brackets, we you know, we think a community like ours could likely pull this off. So,
yeah,
because that's going to be the question when we present it to city council or to the mayor.
Yeah, we're probably not talking about $1 billion, and it also won't cost $10. You know, so
it's in that window. Is there any other feedback for section 8? Is there anything that should be in here that's not, or needs to be expanded or reduced? What do you guys?
I'll be honest, like, this last 2 weeks has been pretty challenging on my household, and I've looked this over, but I haven't given it probably as thorough of a read as I should have, which is also why you're missing some stuff that I said I'd do. So, like, it looks fine to me, but I just have to be honest that I should have read it more thoroughly.
I like most of the changes in this section, you know, and mentioning the pro forma business plan at the end, which is beholden on the city to do that and come up with their own real numbers there. So I think this is a good candidate for putting it in the final draft so that we can actually put it all together.
Okay. So let me see. Since I have my internet back up, I forgot to send this to you guys last week, so I'm emailing you all right now. But it's a very small section 9. We don't have to talk about it today. It's very basic. It's just saying that we've got, we can offer television and streaming video, voice over IP, residential versus business customers. Have business internet connections typically have like static IP and guaranteed service and uptimes, and that the city having a municipal broadband utility allows the city to subsidize internet access to less fortunate people and ensure equal internet access for all Easthampton residents.
Yeah, looks pretty good. I'm reading it right now.
The only thing I wasn't sure about putting in this section was like, should I put pricing that I see other operators providing, but I just wasn't sure if that was a good idea.
I mean, I think we have that in our historical site visits. You mentioned
Yeah.
a few of the providers, what their rates or projections were, so.
Yeah, this is good. I like what I'm reading. I've read all 9, 3,
We
9,
won't
4.
know our costs till build out and subscribe, We could have a hopeful target, but again, that's not something you want to commit to till we know what our landscape will look like.
Yeah. Okay.
And you had, what was it, section 10 too, that in there?
Section
Yeah,
10.
That's the user profiles, and I already gave my feedback on that. The indexing got mixed up. I wish we had more slides that spoke of the general demographics in Easthampton. At one point, Tom, I know you had talked about getting that information for me, but
Yeah, I will. I just didn't.
Yep, understood.
But
I have one global comment on section 10, which is that when we get to I love the comments from survey respondents. I would want to, the main thing is I think that each of these quotes should be bracketed by its own set of quotation marks, because it's not clear to me whether some of these are like 2 paragraphs or whether they're each individual things.
Yeah,
like if somebody had made 2 comments.
Yeah, I mean, I condensed 18 pages of comments there into, what I thought was a decent page and a half or whatever, but I didn't do any formatting beyond that, but I think your point is well taken.
Yeah, they should each be quoted and bulleted or something.
Right.
So.
I actually read through most of the 18 pages, and they got pretty repetitive after, 2 or 3 pages. People were saying the same thing with different words. So that seemed like a good cross-section of the comments we got.
I saw that you neglected to put in the comment about us all being communists.
See that one? Yeah, I decided to pass on that one. I'm suspecting that guy might have worked for our competitor.
Should we, I know this is a subsection of the survey results, and we were planning as an appendix to include the full presentation survey. Should that also include the full comment list for the record?
It really goes on, and it needs cleaning up because, like I said, Jason just kind of did a database dump, so the formatting was pretty rough.
Well, I'm just saying for the record of the survey, we were going to.
Yeah. I think we always planned on doing that, or
Okay.
If there's something online, we can post a link to it. But Jason has it in some rough form, so I can reach out to him again after the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So I do have a comment on this, very minor, but in section 3, like user stories, it says like 3.1 remote and office workers, 3.2 high capacity home users. To me, those could just be bulleted instead of like 3.1, because it reads a little awkwardly.
Okay, yeah, if you want to take a crack at reformatting that thing and send it on to me, that's fine, because most of the changes you made to the other 2 sections were good.
All right, yeah.
Again, I tried to condense about 20 pages of random data there into something that, read like a chapter in a report. So,
Yeah, yeah. I love that we're able to use so many of these like beautiful graphics that we had for
you
the
did a great job with the PowerPoint stuff. I just wish we had more of them. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. So for the people who want to look at that stuff, they get a sample there. And if they really want to see all of them, then we have the live link or the appendix or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Overall, I think section 10 is really nice. Does anybody else have any other feedback for this section?
No, I don't know if it was mentioned before, just the numbering format seems off. I think there's 2 number 1s and then a number 2.
Yeah, I handed it to Paul in a kind of rough word format, shall we say. So
Yeah, no, not a critique. Just I noticed it as I was scrolling through this time. I didn't catch it when I read it earlier. So.
Yeah, I caught it right before the meeting. I was like, wait a minute. Man.
Understood.
Yeah. All right.
But good. Like you said, I think we've made pretty good progress on this thing. It's starting to resemble a final report.
Okay. So, I know, Tom, you've been busy. I'm not going to give you any hard time at all. As far as the rest of the report goes, no, I didn't write anything for conclusions. I didn't write a summary yet. As far as the conclusions and recommendations go, I was hoping that we could talk a little bit about that as a committee. To me, it makes sense that we would recommend, but I didn't want to write anything without seeing what you guys thought. I mean, basically, I think we should recommend that the city moves forward with finding the small amount of money that it needs, at least for a real consultant study and a full survey, so we can get a kind of a better idea of where we really stand on the physical infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think doing a crowdsourced kind of poll survey is an interesting idea, but I also worry that if we did that, we would still end up paying for an official one to be done anyway, because no contractor is gonna trust a crowd. I feel like it would end up being redundant.
I concur.
Yeah, I think at this point, that's probably what we're looking at. It's also worth mentioning, this is really good timing for all of this, because there's a lot of both state and federal money that's starting to float around related to infrastructure stuff, where people are going to be making these really, really big asks for like actual physical things, and where it would be, and we've done this as a city and been successful before, being like, look, Amherst, just for example, wants all these millions of dollars for this big, but we just want 50 grand to hire some consultants to do this, and that's allowed us, like, if we were able to, like, this could actually this could be a product that we could leverage in going forward on that kind of thing. So the timing works out nicely.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I did notice this week. I did notice this week that progressive candidate Ro Khanna is including municipal broadband, universal broadband in his platform. So, I mean, given the outcome of the election, there may be new opportunities available for us.
Yeah, we'll see how all that shakes out. Obviously, there's
I know.
a lot of different ways that could go, but yeah, it's
Sure.
totally like, if this has become something that's sort of popular in certain circles, and we're in the middle of a horrible recession, and if people are looking for sort of shovel-ready, easy projects, like, this wouldn't, there's potential for some stuff depending on how all this shakes out. But all I say was just that, like, I think that right now what we can really say is we think this is a super promising idea. it's very clear that the voters approve of this idea and want us to move forward with it. And so here are the next steps that the city will have to come up with funds, because it requires work that this committee simply doesn't have the expertise to do.
Should we,
I think that we should recommend doing the pro forma business plan, or, you know, actually formalize the cost for this thing, because they have more resources than we do.
should the city form an MLP before we have a pro forma business plan, or in the pursuit of these things?
When you say
You
form
mean,
an
you mean as
MLP,
to like actually create it and select a board and have a you know, a hollow MLP ready to go, or beyond what we've already done?
it would take a while to do that, so it would be good to recommend at least, you know, starting that ball rolling, I think.
Yeah, because that would be the person who could, in theory, execute the pulse, or, you know, execute the development and or any initial agreements with, you know, South Hadley or Westfield if we wanted to partner. That, you know, we'd have to have somebody who could sign a document, I would guess.
I would, yeah, I mean, I think that probably given that right now an MLP would only work on this, I think that probably that would be a next step after we actually looked at a business plan and executed, like, that this is like, once we decided that we were definitely going forward with this, would be, because you don't want to form a board that then they then decide not to move forward with it and it just doesn't do anything. That's my thought anyway.
So you're saying not to form a board, but would it be, you know, what I thought Tom was just talking was like about a general manager or somebody who could at least represent the MLP. I guess it's all tied together.
Yeah, it would all be tied together, but you know, I think it could be handled internally, probably through some existing city official.
Exactly. I
You
mean,
know, and then turn
the
it
city
over.
council will be making the decisions, and we have city agents who can execute these needs.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, we should probably look into what the timeline of creating a turnkey MLP would be, just so that's a known fact. You know, how long did it take Greenfield from municipal vote to having a board, just so it's not a bottleneck later on?
Right. Yep.
Right.
I think they would be our model as far as this, because everybody else already had the MLP in place.
Right.
I mean, let's say we have like a business plan done by, or, you know, or we get a consultant study and we get a poll survey, and then, you know, this would if we had an existing MLP board, that's who would, those documents, you know,
Well,
would be part of reviewing that and saying, okay, is this, you know?
I mean, actually, Paul, in every model, do we need an MLP? Like, if we just wanted to turnkey, have South Hadley provide internet to Easthampton, couldn't we just become a customer?
So the trick with it is access to the polls. So our municipality has a negotiated right of access to the polls as part of it, because we have an individual contract with each poll. So for an outside company to do it, they'd have to go through the whole process of negotiating. So that's why the MLP is kind of a requirement.
Understood. Same with a private entity. They'd use our MLP rights to, like, if a Matrix 1 came in, would they?
So yeah, it would be like, technically, I think the idea with that is you form a public-private partnership. So you still have like an MLP, but it's, you know, they basically would run the show, but you give them the access by creating a paper partnership there.
But I was just curious, back thinking if it was required in every instance, but it seems like every viable instance it would be.
Right.
So do we go as far in this section as to recommend which way the city might go? You know, because I'm pretty comfortable with two candidates in the area here, but I'm not sure how much we want to, or if we even make that recommendation.
I don't think we could recommend like what kind of, you're talking about like what kind of partners we might consider working with?
Yeah, I mean,
Like, which of
that's
the
one of the
options?
reasons I think we were formed was to, research this and then say, these are the viable people there.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious.
Well, I think that's what our report does. I mean, it's a document of what we found, but, I think the mayor and city council would read it, and then,
They don't, yeah.
I mean,
they would have as much information as we did if they wanted to ask us individually or as a board, or as a committee. We could
That's a good
give our
point.
personal response unless we want to formally vote as a group of what we're recommending,
Yeah, which I think about it, I probably take that thought back because I think if we write the report correctly, as Tom just mentioned, the data will be there for any person to make a decision about, where the way to go is,
yeah, the only thing that I would have when it comes to saying the way that we should do this is a partnership, and that partnership should be with X or something like that, is that we don't actually know, like, internally what these various organizations we might partner, what their business plans look like. And it would be maybe not a great look if we said, this is the people to go with, and then they came back and said, actually, because of, I don't know, something COVID related or whatever, like, we're really scaling back our expansions and
I
so,
think we've always said that all along in all the meetings is we don't want to come out and say, well, we like these people and let's get on this road. It's probably outside the scope of the committee.
but what is pretty clear, I think, when you read it is what the various, out of the people who have come to us, because that's the other thing, is somebody else could come forward at the last minute that just hasn't talked to us. I know that like Greenfield was saying they've got partnerships on the Cape. So what's stopping someone in Eastern Mass from reaching out, but I think if you looked at like the way that a lot of this is like, if you look at how this is set up, I think we make it very clear what we liked about the various people who expressed interest. And that's an aspect of this that just I'm speaking from just like my gut here, but from the conversations I've had with colleagues on the council and with the mayor when they've checked in about this project, that seems to be an aspect of this which they're paying very close attention to. They've sometimes watched meetings, like videos of meetings. They've sometimes the mayor has attended meetings. So like this is an aspect of this whole thing that they have paid very close attention to. And I think when we talk about the site visits and about our conversations with the partners, like that's something we don't need to necessarily hold their hands too much on that. I think they're going to get what they need to get from that.
I agree, Tom. I also, in my mind, I feel like if we were to tilt our hand and say we like this or those, then that kind of limits us, or maybe we're telling other potential partners that we've already kind of predetermined something that, really we're not there. It's not up to us to determine those things.
No, this isn't a decision-making process. This is purely research and presentation to the mayor and council. So, I think we're all forming some opinions, but that's not our mandate.
Right.
Our mandate is to find information and describe the next step. So the next step is get more information and find partners, or find who hasn't come to these meetings, who doesn't know we're doing this.
Yeah. Okay.
So the other sections in here, we'll keep them like 6, 7, and whatever, because those are pretty close to it. Tom did a great job with benefits and risks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we gave good feedback for those last time, so I'm sure they'll come together.
This would be great. So, Paul, are you gonna try to collate all of this into one semi-cohesive document? Do you want help with it?
Yeah, so, well, I was thinking this is a pretty long thing. Do we want to have, at least do we want to keep having each section kind of as its own independent document, or do we want to get to the point where this is just one file with all these sections one after another?
Yeah, I think it should be. That's the logical next step to make, because we're getting pretty
Okay.
close with each section, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think so. I think we're getting there. So yeah, I'll be happy to work on 1 and 13 before the next meeting, and help anybody else out with their sections if you want any help at all.
I'll go in and clean up the 3 that I've worked on, and I'll reach out to you if I have any questions on that. So I think the changes, except for user profiles, are pretty minor.
Okay.
And I'll do that in the next week or so you have time to combine it all.
Okay. I think we lost Dan throughout
Yeah,
this.
he emailed us to say he dropped off.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the only other point is we are at quorum threshold of 5 of our 9-member committee. So if we lose anybody else, we should make an effort to get back in so we can close the meeting officially.
Yeah.
It'll be a long meeting.
Yeah,
I think that's
Okay.
it for the report section. So.
I think so. So let's see here. What else do I got? All right. So I think that's it for the report. I know I think maybe we were a bit ambitious. I know we said we would have like a total, like, final draft that we would have for today. But I think we were so close.
Yeah.
I think if we hold our regular meeting, it's only 3 weeks away, is the first Monday in October because of the Labor Day holiday we had. So I think that is a good amount of time to get things wrapped up a little further.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any new business to bring to the table? No.
No.
Okay. Great. Well, then I think that is on the agenda. Yep, that's it for today.
Next meeting is when?
It'll be Monday, the 5th of October.
10/5. All right.
All right.
For a meeting to adjourn.
Yeah. Did you just motion that, Kevin?
I think I did.
Second?
It's been a long day.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. Tom M.
Yes.
Yes. Tom Peak.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yep.
Stan.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Stan.
Thought we lost
We
our
are-
quorum for a minute.
We are adjourned. Thank you all so much. And follow up with y'all over the next couple weeks and see you on October 5th.
All right. Thank you.
Great.
Bye,
All right.
everyone.
Thanks for all your work, Paul.
You got it, Kevin.